Hey everyone, welcome to Dev Interrupted. I'm your host, Dan Lyons, and today we're joined by Anjney, VP of Platform Ecosystem at Discord. Anj, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome to have you here. You obviously have an unbelievable background, lots of accomplishments. You're a founder, investor. You've been named on the Forbes 30 under 30 list. Little small accomplishment there. And you found your way to Discord as previously you were the CEO of Ubiquity 6, which was acquired by Discord in 2021. So, first off, congrats on that acquisition. Huge milestone for any founder.
Thank you.
Unbelievable. Really cool
It was a
stuff.
long, it was a roller coaster for sure. And I'm sure we'll have a chance to get into it today.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, your title, VP of Platform Ecosystem, definitely like an intriguing title. You don't see that every day. We're going to dive into that in your role as well a little bit later. We'll talk about Discord's future. And in fact, Discord had a huge announcement yesterday, which you let us attend as special guests. So thank you, by the way. Great event. Everybody had fun. And you've got big plans for the future that involve developers, which is what we're all about on this pod. Really exciting stuff. We love it when companies think serious about building these amazing communities, especially for devs. So we're going to get into all of that. But before we do that, first, definitely want to know a little bit more about you. So you have a background as a VC. How did you get into that? Is that what you always wanted to do, or what's your career story?
Look, the dots are always easy to connect in hindsight. And so take all this with a pinch of salt. But the North Star, which I don't think has changed, was always to be a product builder. Right. I just think it's like being a developer is one of the coolest things in the world, where you've got an idea and you get to turn that into reality. And so that was the dream. At the time, a mentor, I was kicking around a few ideas post grad school on the products I wanted to build as a developer, and a mentor said, "Look, you keep talking about being a good developer as sort of equivalent to just engineering, but there's a hell of a lot that goes into bringing a product to life and getting lots of people to understand its value. That's not just the engineering side of things. There's the talking to customers, and there's the shaping of the product to make sure it actually meets and does what people expect it to. And then there's the whole commercial side of building a business around it.
Yeah.
And so you may want to spend maybe half a year or a year somewhere where you actually can see what that's like." And so I got introduced to venture capital through him. And I went in largely thinking I'd spend a little bit of time understanding how developers were thinking about building their businesses, right? So if you're building an application or a company as a dev, I wanted to understand how they were thinking about turning products into companies or businesses. But of course, in hindsight, it turned out to be just an incredible time in the history of venture capital to be there for businesses that were actually focused on serving developers. Up until then, historically, the traditional wisdom in venture capital was that you couldn't build a big business selling to developers or serving them, because there was no such thing as a dev budget at
Yeah.
most
The
companies. Right?
dollars. The
Yeah,
dollars
there are
are
no
good. Yeah.
dollars. Exactly. You usually sold to IT or some other business decision maker, and that completely was flipped on its head starting in 2011, 2012, when you started to see these developer first businesses like Stripe and Twilio and Epic Games selling directly, serving the developer as the customer. And so in hindsight, it was sort of the perfect place to be, and it shaped a lot of my thinking. But yeah, I never intended to stay in venture, and soon after I did leave to start a developer platform. So I think I guess in hindsight, these dots are easy to again connect looking backwards. But at the time, I just went in thinking I'd learn a little bit about what it was like to build a business as a developer, and came out, with an insane amount of conviction that some of the best businesses of our time would be the ones that actually serve developers directly.
Yeah. Now everything makes sense. Now that we look back. No, that's really cool. I actually haven't talked to too many folks that start out with that VC background and then go on to be, and I'm sure it happens, but a great entrepreneur. So how did you transition to becoming a co-founder of Ubiquity 6 after your time as a VC?
Look, I think if you're lucky, my belief is one of the luckiest things that can happen to you is to be obsessed about a problem you just can't get out of your head, that you care about so much that you wake up every day and you're like, you know, that thing is still niggling at me. And so one of those, I was lucky enough in 2013, 2014 that there was a problem I kept seeing developers running into when I was an investor at the time that I couldn't get out, just couldn't shake, which was that, increasingly the tools for developers to create content were becoming dramatically accessible. You had, let's take the gaming industry as an example. At the time, you had these incredible game engines that allowed dev teams that would have needed to be 20, 30 people just 5, 6 years earlier to put out a decent immersive or high fidelity experience for consumers.
Yeah.
Now you and your friend could pull it off from your bedroom, just like two people, because the game engines had made a lot of the parts of authoring and rendering games really, really easy. And then on the infrastructure side, a lot of cloud providers were making it super easy to deploy those games, right? And so suddenly the tools of the creation side had become dramatically easier. But then once you're actually done building the thing, getting distribution for it, actually getting into the hands of lots of people had become harder and harder. Because what was happening was a lot of the usual distribution places, maybe some of the bigger app stores or other distribution platforms, were starting to become saturated with teams that had a lot of marketing dollars to spend. And so if you were an independent developer and you didn't have a lot of budget on your side, it was kind of hard to
Yeah, that's
build
tough.
an audience.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you kind of just get like swallowed up, or like no one knows.
exactly.
There's so many like games out there and apps and stuff. I could totally see that.
Exactly. So there's this huge inundation of lots of content, and a lot of the stores were just doing the minimum amount of work required, to display
Yeah.
your work as a developer. And so I was like talking to all these developers, like, wow, there's so much talent here, but wow, a lot of the talent just never sees the light of day because there's no good place to get distribution. And so I left venture capital to start a developer platform around the idea, the belief that if you could aggregate enough of an audience in one place for developers and do a lot of heavy lifting for them, you could actually give indie and independent developers who didn't have, lots and lots of capital sitting around to spend on marketing or advertising a chance to actually build large standalone businesses. At the time we were starting to see glimmers of this in sort of niche markets like Roblox, with the kids market, but they hadn't seen a cloud first developer platform that did a lot of heavy lifting for creators at the time. And so I was just basically obsessed with that idea. And so I left to start Ubiquity 6 in 2017. And that's what we ended up doing.
That's awesome. And then, of course, what we said in the intro, Ubiquity 6 was then acquired by Discord. That's where you are today. What was that like that experience like for you?
Oh, it was, we basically didn't miss a beat. I'd been lucky to know the founders at Discord for many years. I think we shared a common belief that the magic in software often comes from the insane dedication that developers often have to just listening to customers and users and crafting the right experience that's better than what users have to put up with today. And we shared a similar view of the world that if you constructed a platform with this idea of primitives at the core, the idea that a platform could have, if you built all the surfaces that users typically interact with as Lego blocks that then developers could extend, you could actually allow developers to express their creativity in ways you didn't imagine. And then that creates this incredible flywheel where developers create things you didn't imagine. That attracts, lots and lots of users who are looking for new experiences they can't get anywhere else. And that in turn attracts even more developers who want to access that audience. And so we'd built a similar, this sort of mechanic at Ubiquity 6. And I'd been talking to Jason and Stan at Discord for many years, and they saw a similar view of the world. And sometimes you have a chance to team up and accelerate your view of the world. And that's what we ended up doing last year.
That's great. It sounds like a pretty smooth transition. Sometimes it doesn't go, as nicely as you're describing. So it seems like, vision's in place. You're in a good spot.
It doesn't. Look, and going into it, I was, had my eyes wide open that sometimes these things don't work out. But, here we are 12 months later. And actually what you heard yesterday is that what we've been building at Ubiquity 6 has actually fully now become a part of Discord. We're showing that off to the world today with a global release. So I can't complain at all. I'm thrilled that, we didn't have to miss a beat. We're able to join the Discord product roadmap, shape it, and actually then bring it to users very, very quickly thereafter.
Absolutely. So now, let's talk about Discord a bit. And, we'll start with your title, VP of Platform Ecosystem. Pretty sexy title. Sounds interesting. What is this all about?
Ah, look, I think in software we like to borrow analogies to make some of these abstract concepts easier. So we can just break the platform ecosystem. Like if you ask 5 different people, you probably get 5 different answers. But here's my version of it, which is that the word ecosystem comes from the word of from the world of biology, right? And it usually means you've got this loose connection between many different kinds of folks or players or providers. Sometimes, in an ecosystem you have biological animals, you have flora and fauna, and then you have water systems, and they're all interacting. And often they are both independent of each other, and then without even realizing it, they affect each other, right? So that's the ecosystem part. And on the platform side, there's this idea that there is a central or sole group of people responsible for nurturing that ecosystem or some part of it. And so that's what I love about those two words is platform is somewhat more of a centralized responsibility, and ecosystem is much more of a decentralized dynamic. And when you put those two together, you have this sort of flexible responsibility of providing the right underlying Lego blocks or infrastructure for people in the world of in and around your product to do interesting things. And then the ecosystem part connotes that you gotta have to be okay with a little bit of chaos. And you have to be okay with partnering with other people and being not necessarily central to somebody else's business, but being an important part of it or being a supporting cast member. And that's sort of
Yeah.
how I think about it. So my job
Yeah.
is basically to make sure that Discord, anything that developers might need to build on top of our 150 million monthly active users, to build new kinds of experiences that we never expected, that we listen to them, we give them the primitives, the Lego blocks they need, and then we sort of get out of their way as quickly as possible because they're the ones with the magic and the creativity.
So if I'm a developer listening to the pod and I haven't, gotten to contribute in any way in your world and Discord with the ecosystem, like what are some of the interesting things developers are doing there, and like how could I get started if I had an idea?
That's a great question. So it turns out the Discord ecosystem is fairly linked to the history of gaming. I think spiritually, if you're a developer and you grew up playing games, you're probably pretty familiar with the concept of modding, right? This is the idea that most great games often have people who care so much about the experience that they actually want to extend it even further in ways the original game developers didn't expect. And so again,
Absolutely.
this is sort of like the vibrant history, right? Of like some of the
Yeah.
biggest titles starting off as mods, where a player goes, I feel like I could have done a better job with this part of the game. Or what if, that this title could do X, Y, Z that you guys didn't think of. And the beauty of code is often you can go in and fork it, mod it, and engineer it to be slightly different to express your creativity. And that's really the core concept behind Discord. Now, Discord is largely a communications platform. It's not a game, but that philosophy that users who care a lot about extending the product in ways that the original developers didn't care about is baked right in. So on day, I think there's a screenshot somewhere I can send you where there's like the landing page, the first ever landing page that Discord ever had, and already on there was a little like icon of a puzzle piece showing that you could go in and extend Discord through a bunch of exposed APIs, whether that was the chat interface or voice channels, to effectively hack in functionality that the
That's
original
cool.
creators of Discord didn't care about. So if you're a developer, spiritually, you can think about it as a totally moddable platform, right? You can extend it any way you like. Now, what are the most successful experiences? It's basically things that leverage the parts of Discord that are most unique. And the magic really happens with real-time shared multiplayer experiences. So, people spend a lot of time on Discord hanging out in real-time voice channels or video channels. And
Mhm.
so if you're a developer, this is sort of a gift where you don't have to do a lot of the work to actually assemble people who are synchronously hanging out in one place. And then the magic of Discord is that often these conversations, large groups of people start out hanging out in voice channels and then keeping the conversation going in text chat, and then they come back to voice chat. So where we've seen the most success is 2 or 3 examples that might bring that to life. One is moderation. So you have many people have now started using Discord as a place for community conversations where you may have started off with 5, 10 people who care about something. Open source software is a great example. There's a ton of open source software communities on Discord. But when a group gets really big, you often need a fair amount of moderation to make sure that people who stay friendly to each other and the conversations stay on track. And originally, some human had to do a lot of that work. And I've seen developers get really creative about actually reducing the burden on moderators to make a community's conversation much safer, flow better, reward engagement. And there are a bunch of apps and bots on Discord that do that really well. So if you're a developer, you may want to check some of those out. More recently, we've seen that the spectrum of these bots range from more practical things like the one I'm talking about, like moderation, task automation, to like just really fun stuff. Like you may have heard of Midjourney is a more recent app that I love, where it's a really creative team of just a small team of developers who watched what was happening with these generative AI models that turn text to images, and it's effectively a Discord bot that helps users imagine what's in their head by just typing in a text prompt and turning that into imagery. And it's been widely popular with Discord users. So it's a pretty broad range and gamut of things you can do as a developer. But at its core, if you've got something that leverages a shared dynamic where it helps to have multiple people in real time looking at what the product or the application is doing, what I think of as inherently multiplayer mode, that's where apps really shine on Discord.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally awesome. I mean, like anyone listening that wants to get involved, Anj definitely has the right, I think, instincts and spirit of maybe where the coolest place is to contribute. And I like kind of that multiplayer mode, anything that's more social or, a little app that can help with those aspects sometimes, really blows up really well. Anj, if you do a really good job, over the next few years, what does that look like or feel like at Discord? Like, what are your goal? What would you want to have happen?
That's a good question. So look, my vision and my role is to make Discord an even more open platform, right? Makes Discord super customizable and allows the product and the platform to grow with users and their communities. Often users start their journey with Discord when they might be, at the end of high school or in college, and their needs change as they grow older. And there's just no way the team at Discord can anticipate all the needs of people. And when you have 150 million monthly active users, you're at a scale that just makes it hard for the team internally. Just think about all users equally. And one of the magic pieces of Discord is it aggregates a lot of niches at scale. And I think there's just a perfect app for every niche, but there's no way the team at Discord as a centralized platform can cater to all those needs. So openness is sort of the core thing I wake up thinking about every day. And 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now, if we've succeeded at building an open platform, I think the product will basically look indistinguishable today because developers have really taken it and run with it to serve all kinds of niches that we didn't even expect. That's may have started out with gaming originally many years ago, but today people are doing things like buying, selling, and trading with each other in enthusiast communities. It might be sneakers, it might be GPUs, computer parts. Other people use it as a community for open source software discussions. Other people, like I mentioned, are using it to build generative AI models together. There's just no way that you can cater to that diversity without being a truly open platform that embraces all these different use cases. So that's sort of my
so cool.
idea of success.
Yeah, so let's take this amazing Discord, but kind of make it our own or make it whatever we want it to be as developers. That's kind of what I'm hearing from you. I love that spirit.
That's exactly right. I think success is two different people with very different needs show up to a product that might look completely different from them, but underlying it are the same APIs and primitives. And they've been extensible and flexible enough that people have been able to mix and match them to create and make the product their own.
Awesome. Well, we're going to do a little transition here now. Connor's going to jump in. So he's going to, walk you through the rest of it here. But super awesome to meet you. Hopefully we'll get to spend more time together. And I'll turn it over to Connor now.
Likewise.
I'm super excited to jump in here and take over from Dan. He had the opportunity to kind of dive into your background and how you view the future of Discord. And I love the perspective on community you're bringing on because that's something that we've actually embraced here. I don't know if you know, but we have a large Discord community.
I saw.
So
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're big fans, and I'm excited to kind of learn from some of the stuff you're saying on like how can we better leverage it to like bring value to everyone who's listening. So definitely, if you're listening to the show, join discord.gg/devinterrupted. Come hang out. Discussions pretty much every day happening about the future of engineering leadership and how to enable developers. And speaking of enabling developers, I was really lucky to get to join Anj and a bunch of the team at Discord the other day for an incredible announcement event they did about the new ecosystem developments that are happening with developers in Discord. But Anj, I know you're going to give us the scoop on this. Like, what's happening? Let's tell the audience.
All right. So there's a couple big drum beats that I think we should talk about. The first one that's pretty exciting is the new app directory. So this week, we're rolling out an app directory, which is, you could think of as finally a home for all the apps that live on Discord. We have thousands of these that people have built over the years, but it's actually never been easy to search.
It's always been third party. I have to like find it on some website and download it and like figure out like, oh, how do I set this up?
Yeah, it was very much like a bottoms up guerrilla grassroots effort where creative devs would build these apps and then people would find them off platform, either search somewhere online or somebody put a listicle together compiling the best apps in a particular category. And so for years, we've heard from users that they wanted a way to just search for these apps inside of Discord and have one-click install. And that's what we're rolling out today. It's the app directory. So for the first time ever, admins can browse a catalog of verified apps, and one click, you just add them to the server that you want.
Anj, I cannot tell you how much of a difference that makes. As someone who's like been an admin for a couple different Discord servers over the years now, like that is just so convenient. It's wonderful to hear.
I thank you for your tireless patience, and to the many people listening.
It's worth it.
You've been an admin. We know your pain, and hopefully this will make you a lot happier. So now, admins can see curated collections of apps on their homepage, because sometimes it's overwhelming to figure out where to start. And so we actually have a few recommendations, but there's also just a bunch of browsable categories. And if you select an app, you can see you've got this nifty little product page for the app that shows you, overview of the functionality, the commands, supported languages, how many servers have them. And for a developer, what we've heard is they're thrilled because now it's so much easier to reach your audience, right? You don't have to figure out like what third-party website or listicle you need to appear in to get to Connor. Now Connor can just find the best apps for your server in one place. So that's one big piece that we're really excited to unveil today. The second one, which goes along with this idea of an open platform that I talked about, where developers can build real standalone businesses, is premium app subscriptions. Now, this is basically a new experiment that allows developers to sell their apps natively on Discord. So instead of having to duct tape a bunch of different ways for your most valuable users to actually pay you, you can just do off of Discord. You can do that now directly inside of Discord. And I think this is a pretty meaningful next step in expanding the relationship with devs. So, and to show devs that we really care about the ecosystem being large and robust and standalone and sustainable. And so developers with paid tiers and subscriptions can now just one click, open up that ability to users. It's a closed experiment for now. Usually we have this sort of crawl, walk, run mindset where we're starting with a bunch of developers who've signed up for early access, and then we plan to open this up. And so if you're listening to this and you're not part of this group, there's a wait list that's up on the site, and starting next week, when this directory launches, users can begin subscribing to apps that have this feature. And if you're on the wait list, we'll start pulling you off of that and giving you early access to premium.
I'm curious about the backend side. So obviously this is huge for developers, like more access to more communities. It's huge for admins on the front end saying, okay, we can bring apps into our community. And, as a user, even if you're not admin of a server, you can say, hey, admin, like this is a verified app. We should bring it in. And, Midjourney you brought up earlier, which super cool generative AI tool. That's something that we can like bring directly in now, or translation services or improved moderation capabilities. Lots of opportunities here. How about the back end of that platform ecosystem you talked about, the Lego bricks? Is Discord taking like a cut from the paid subscription model? How is that all working for devs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the infrastructure actually is built, operated, and managed by Discord, because what we found when talking to developers is scale can become quickly overwhelming.
Yeah.
Right? Now Discord has had the experience of scaling infrastructure, whether it's WebRTC and voice infra, to some of our accounts infrastructure, our identity infrastructure. It can be pretty hard for developers to build all of that scaffolding on their own. And so we do actually handle all of that for developers. So you bring the creativity, you build the core the application experience, and we handle everything else underneath that front end experience. And in return, what we've heard from developers is they're actually asking for a way to pay for that infrastructure. And so
Totally.
we're working with them on what might be a fair value exchange there. So we don't have a published fee yet, and this is why this is a closed experiment. We're talking to them every day and trying to understand, what is a good value exchange there. But I expect that the most common thing we hear from developers is that real? Are you sure? Like that you want to give us all this? Because it really collapses the amount of work you've got to do.
It's just incredible convenience, right? Like, and
Right.
Discord's been through all those scaling problems already, particularly on the infrastructure side. So you can kind of bring that to bear. And I think
Right.
that's, to your point, a great value exchange. And I love that it kind of speaks to the ethos of Discord too, of how you're handling this. You're saying, hey, we want to bring folks in, we want to get feedback, have a closed experiment. And Discord's all about community. So it's the same way where you're enabling the community of developers to say, help shape this program that we can do to benefit you. And then that's a mutually beneficial opportunity. That's fantastic.
Right. Which brings me actually to my third update, which I'm incredibly excited about, because this is sort of the kernel of the product that Ubiquity 6 was acquired to build at Discord, and that this is the launch of activities. Starting this week, we've got this incredible new feature that merges a shared multiplayer canvas into voice channels. And so for the first time, Discord developers can take over the entire screen. So far,
Love it.
that if you're a developer, you could be pretty creative, but like the primary surface you were restricted to was the chat interface. And we've heard from you developers, especially the most talented ones, that they're frequently having to they run up against that limit. There's only so much you can pipe through a chat surface. So starting this week, we give away the entire canvas to developers, and we're calling these activities. They're shared full screen multiplayer apps that stream from the cloud. And so users don't have to install anything. They don't have to download anything. We allow the developers to take over the entire voice and video canvas. And so while we're starting with both games and watching videos together, there's a bunch of first party games we've got there that are built by our studios. We're working with a handful of developers to publish their own experiences that are not games, things like Watch Together, where you can watch YouTube together. What I'm stoked about is the flexibility and creativity that this canvas enables, because what we're seeing from users is they love launching these, initially getting into it to play the game together, watch the videos, and they quickly ask about whether they can listen to music together, or they can shop together, or they can code together, create together. But anything that benefits from a shared multiplayer canvas now it can live as an application inside of Discord. And so I'm incredibly stoked that starting this week, this canvas is live for the world. We do have a sign up link for developers who want to get into our publishing experience. We've started with first party. We've now started working with a bunch of partners, and we're soon going to open up the platform to all kinds of developers. And in connection with that, we're launching our first ecosystem fund. And so for developers who are listening to this and are thinking about whether to build for Discord, we're actually starting a fund and committing $5 million for prospective developers, early stage startups, and strategic partners to build apps and bots like the activities canvas I just described to you. So I'm pretty excited for this new announcement. And if people want to check it out, they can head on over to Discord. If you're a Nitro subscriber, you can access. Thank you for your support.
Absolutely,
all of
Nitro.
the activities. But if you don't have Nitro, that's okay. Everybody gets access to activities. You can check out the canvas. This week we have a title called Butt Party. That's a real-time multiplayer experience, and then we've got Watch Together, so you can queue up YouTube videos and watch them together, and that should give people a taste of the kind of developer primitive we're working on.
I do have to roast you a little here, Anj, which is I did see you play one of the games during the announcement, and you were like, I should be pretty good at this, and I think you missed your first shot after saying that.
Look, practice makes perfect, Connor. So ask me again in 2 weeks.
All right,
I'll take you on.
We'll challenge you then. This is so cool because I think it enables so many of the communities on Discord. Like to your point, like gaming has been a huge piece of Discord since its inception. I'll say it's like how I originally got on the platform, and it's expanded to something where like many Twitch streamers, as an example, have a community on Discord where they connect with their followers, and often they'll do voice chat opportunities, or maybe they'll play games with folks. And now you can actually do that in Discord, have the shared experience fully. It just eases that friction there. And I think to your point about just opening up this whole new green space for folks to go develop and create. And I think that combined with the ecosystem fund and the opportunity to bring in apps into a marketplace that is really connected and easy to use both for users and developers, like it's very clear that Discord is caring deeply about like, what is the experience for developers who want to build on our platform and trying to make it as easy as possible. And with a paid premium model as lucrative as possible. I think that's a fantastic step in the right direction. And it seems like from what you're saying, talking about your vision of ecosystems, that's how you see the future of Discord going.
I think that's right. I think allowing users to pay for software that they love, built by developers directly, is sort of the most aligned business model there is. For many years, the consumer software space got away from that by, I think prioritizing ads. I think Discord's secret sauce has always been just prioritizing the most simple business model ever. You like the product, you pay for it. And I find developers love that simplicity too. And we've seen the problems with other misaligned business models, right? Elsewhere. And here, I think it's amazing to be able to align both the consumer experience and the developer experience, because developers love the simplicity of saying, oh, if I build a better product, you've got the rails set up for consumers to pay for that. And that value exchange is simple to reason about and doesn't result in a bunch of, I think adverse effects that we've seen, second and third order effects on platforms that on consumer platforms that prioritize some other business model and then are having to actually roll back developer primitives because there was abuse and misalignment, right?
If what you're doing isn't making the beer better, I think is the quote where it's like, if it's not focused on delivering value to your users and the people building on your platform, it's probably misaligned your business in the long run. And I think you're spot on with that.
Do what it says on the bottle.
I really appreciate that perspective and the way you're integrating both like the attention to community that's such at the core of Discord with the alignment with the business model of how the platform works. There's clearly a ton that Discord can provide to developers here. If there's like one or two takeaways, you're like, hey, developer, you're listening to this, like engineering leader, you're listening to this, like, here's the thing you should take away. Is it sign up for the wait list? Is it sign up for ecosystem fund? What is it?
Well, so there's three things I covered. The first is, we're opening up all these new surfaces, right? I've talked about apps and I've talked about activities. And there's a third surface that I think is really important to talk about. And before I mention what that surface is, I should say, as when you open up a platform, one of the things you're doing is giving much, much more power and flexibility to developers. But as always, with great power comes great responsibility. And so something that's super top of mind for us is safety and and trust. And so as we were talking to users and developers about opening up the platform, it became clear that you've got to balance safety and trust with all these new capabilities. And so we actually introduced a new surface as well that I think helps foster a lot more safety and trust on the platform. We're calling this connections. Now, connections exist today in a way on Discord, where if you go to your profile, you got a tab that says, connect to show presence to your friends or your community, where if Connor's connected his Xbox, PlayStation, Spotify, and so on, then others on Discord can see what games you might be playing on PlayStation.
Yeah, I think I have my Steam and my Spotify connected.
Exactly. That's right. And that's a pretty popular type of way people extend their Discord profile. They like to show off their friends and community what they're doing in real time, because that helps foster a conversation or hangout. So starting next month, users will be able to add new external identities to their profiles to verify who they are, share more about themselves, and access new experiences in their communities. So you can connect, your PayPal account, for example, to show that you are in fact a trusted collector in a sneaker community you might be in. And that allows admins to set up gated access to buyer-seller experiences in a more transparent way by creating verified roles. You can set up custom channels based on shared interests and qualifications. If Connor, connects his dev interrupted account, that allows developers to see that somebody else in the community they're chatting with has actually also been a member of the dev interrupted server for a long time. And so that's the third surface we're announcing today that is largely catered to improving privacy, trust, and safety on the platform. So if I had to summarize why and how we're becoming more open, it's, we're opening up the app directory to allow users to find apps in a much, much more easier way. And that should help admins create and find the right apps for their server. We're opening up activities, so you have a much bigger canvas. And then we're opening up the profile with a relaunch of connections to allow developers to give users the ability to trust and verify any parts of their identity in a way that wasn't possible before. Lastly, there's the ecosystem fund that helps show off the commitment that we think developers who actually engage with these services have a real shot at building a sustainable business on the platform.
Well, Anj, this has been a wonderful conversation. And I want to make sure that we give developers a very clear takeaway of like, hey, here's our call to action. What is the takeaway that you want developers to hear from this announcement from Discord?
I think there's only three things I could leave developers with. It's the first. The first is that we're becoming much, much more open today, right? So we're launching the app directory, which is a new surface for search and discovery of apps. We're launching activities, which is a whole new canvas. And we're launching connections, which opens up the profile to developers. And the second is that we're really committed and believe that developers can build sustainable businesses. And we're launching the ecosystem fund to show our financial commitment to that effort. And the third is that, we think the future of Discord as a company, as a product, as a community is in supporting developers. And so we think there's never been a better time to develop on Discord. We're becoming much more open, and we're committing to the financial sustainability of developers who are building. And so it's, if I was a developer, I'm hoping that folks hearing this would see that there's just an incredible new frontier for them to start expressing their creativity on. And we're pretty serious about helping folks get started and growing as developers on the platform, because the future of Discord is these apps that we've talked about taking the product in directions we've never expected.
Well said, Anj. And for folks listening who want to talk more about how to develop on Discord and what's going on with the developer ecosystem in Discord, hey, I'm going to plug our own Discord here. Join it. Discord.gg/devinterrupted. Come join us. But Anj, it's been a really wonderful conversation. I love how much is happening on Discord to help enable both developers and end users, and the philosophy behind your approach. Thanks for coming on the show. It's been wonderful.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I'll see you on the server.